Hari Om Swarna Bhagini, you can start. You're self-muted.
Namaskaram Bhagini.
Namaskar.
पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवै रणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। नमो नमः।
धन्यवादः भगिनी।
धन्यवादः।
नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यम् श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यम् तं तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यात् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मेष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So today I'll be giving you a summary of the 18th chapter of the Gita, which we completed yesterday. So the 18th chapter is the biggest chapter of the Gita, consisting of 78 verses, and which summarizes the whole teaching of the Gita given by the Lord in all the previous chapters, right? So the summary of the entire Gita appears in two places. The first summary is given by the Lord, the beginning itself in the second chapter, which is also a very big chapter with 72 verses. So that chapter is the beginning summary and the 18th chapter is the concluding summary. Now this is the style of the Shastra, that the whole teaching must be introduced in the beginning also, and the whole teaching must be summarized at the end also. So in Mimamsa Shastra, this is called Upakrama Upasamhara Ekarupatvam. Upakrama Upasamhara, beginning and end, Ekarupatvam, right, being the same, right? It's exactly like those days when we used to follow the exact format of the news. They will start with the headlines, then they will detail out the news, and then they will say to end the news, the headlines once again, right? So Mimamsa rule is followed even today in our news reading, right? So therefore, both second and 18 chapters are very important chapters. Therefore, some people want to study only those two chapters and avoid the intermediary chapters. But remember, to understand these two chapters, we require all the intermediary ones. Thus, 18th chapter is an important chapter, and this chapter has got a very peculiar title. Superficially seeing it, one may cause our eyebrows to raise, right? Because the title says Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. Let us spend some time on this title because it is very important and critical, and I know that you all can understand what I'm saying now, right? 3 years back when I started out, had I explained this, it would have been difficult for any of you to relate, right? So, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. Sannyasa means renunciation. Moksha means liberation. So, Moksha Sannyasa means what, right? To explain this, I need to just take an analogy with English so that, we can quickly relate to it. There is something called a tooth powder, okay? Assume that the younger generation today doesn't know tooth powder as well as toothpaste, right? They know toothpaste because it is more common, but they don't know what is tooth powder. Now, suppose you go and tell them, right, give me tooth powder, right? Suppose you ask a child or a 8 or 9-year-old child or a teenager who's not at all exposed to this, what would the mind think? Is it powder for cleaning the tooth, or is it the tooth powdered, right? So is it for cleaning the tooth powder, or is it tooth's powder which maybe is used for something, and maybe the child is not aware, or the teenager is not aware because he's not exposed to this, right? So depending on the context, the same tooth powder can be interpreted as powder for the tooth and tooth's powder, right? It can either be interpreted this way or that way. Now, if you know the context, so you go and tell some, adult, give me tooth powder, right? Or at least definitely of our age or middle age, they would know that, oh, okay, you can always brush your teeth with tooth powder also, not necessarily toothpaste, right? So they know it is powder for the tooth. So their tooth powder means powder for the tooth. It can also mean tooth's powder, right? So we must remember that both possibilities are there. So now let's come to our topic of moksha sannyasa. That is why I brought both these to, bring in the context here. Now, is it the renunciation of liberation itself? Mokshasya sannyasa? In fact, we're working for liberation, right? Mokshaya sannyasa, we are actually working for liberation. So where is the question of renouncing something which we have not yet achieved? Therefore, the title is a peculiar title, and we can have two meanings for this title. One from the beginner's angle and from the standpoint of the highest Vedantic principles, right? Two. One is beginner's angle, the other is from the highest Vedantic standpoint. So from beginner's angle, the meaning of the title is Mokshartam Sannyasah. In Sanskritam, for moksha, sannyasah, renunciation for the sake of attaining moksha. Because in the Gita, Lord Krishna presents both the important spiritual disciplines as form of inner renunciation. What was that? In the 18th chapter itself, Karma Yoga was defined as what? Sattvika sannyasah, an internal renunciation of the anxiety regarding karma phalam. So karma yoga is also a type of renunciation. Renunciation of what? The anxiety regarding the karma phala. The anxiety which is caused by raga and dvesha, right? I only want this kind of result. I don't want any other result. The strong anxiety, Krishna asks us to renounce by preparing the mind to accept whatever karma phalam, oh Lord, you give. I'm willing to accept it. You know the answer, accept it as Ishvara Prasadaha. We all know, because we've gone through this Gita study, we accept whatever the result comes as Ishvara Prasadaha. Therefore, a Karma Yoga with Prasada Bhavana renounces anxiety. So to find out whether we are really practicing Karma Yoga or not, the best test is what? What is our degree of anxiety? Is it coming down? In these 3 years, has it come down at least a wee bit, right? Greater the anxiety, lesser the karma yogi, yogitvam or yogi, karma yogi, okay? Lesser the anxiety, greater the karma yogi I am. Therefore, sannyasa means anxiety. So, sannyasa is the definition of the karma yoga phalatyagaha. So, finally, jnana yoga is also sannyasa only. It is renunciation of the ignorance. So what ignorance? Self-ignorance. The renunciation of the strong ahankara and mamakara born out of ignorance. So taking the body-mind complex as ahankara and claiming the things in this world as mine, according to Krishna, all of this belongs to whom? The ultimate God is Vishwarupa Ishvara. So I use the body-mind complex, I use the family, but I never claim ownership. So renunciation of this wrong claim is Jnana Yoga. So Karma Yoga is also a type of sannyasa. Jnana Yoga is also a type of sannyasa. By following this twofold sannyasa, I attain moksha. Therefore, mokshartam sannyasah, for the sake of moksha, sannyasa of what? Through Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. So this is the meaning at the junior level, right? So you must remember, this is mokshartam sannyasah, right? Chaturthi vibhakti meaning here, and not mokshasya. Now coming to the second meaning, very important and very subtle meaning, right? And look at how Lord Krishna has used this term. So from the highest level of Vedanta, renunciation of moksha itself, how do we do that? This can be understood only as you start delving deep into this teaching. Because we are expecting moksha because we think we have bondage. Because we think we have bondage, we are looking for something called moksha. Vedanta ultimately does not give us moksha. So you might wonder, what is this? Lord Krishna is telling this in the 18th chapter, right? Maybe in the beginning, if he had said this whole teaching would have been, we needn't have spent time, right? So we say, Vedanta does not give moksha. Vedanta removes the notion that I am bound. Aham baddhaha. That notion, right, is removed. Bondage is adhyasaha, right? So it's all mithya. Moksha, the bondage, everything, right? Therefore, once I study Vedanta thoroughly, the notion that I am bound goes away. Therefore, where is the need for moksha? Therefore, the ultimate jnani says, I never had any bondage. Therefore, I never got any liberation. Right? So, in the very well-known shloka that I'm sure many of you might be using in meditation, right? Na dharmo na charto na kamo na mokshaha sidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. Therefore, jnanam, right, makes me renounce the idea of bandha and consequently the idea of moksha itself. Therefore, renunciation of moksha also can be justified from the highest Vedantic angle. So what are the two meanings in summary? Renunciation for moksha is the meaning for junior students. Renunciation of moksha is the meaning for senior students. The journey from one meaning to the other meaning is the spiritual journey in reality, right? So you decide where you are and continue. So this is the significance of the title. I enjoyed reading this and I thought I should share this with you. So now we'll just go through the topics discussed in the 18th chapter. From verse number 1 to 12, Lord Krishna answers the question raised by Arjuna. Arjuna's question was regarding two words in Sanskritam which conveys the meaning of renunciation. Those two words are sannyasa and tyagaha. So Arjuna wants to know whether there is any difference between these two words. So Lord Krishna gives the answer by quoting the opinion of various other people who differentiate sannyasa and tyaga. Finally, Krishna conveys that from his vision, there is no difference at all. Both of them mean the same, that is renunciation. Having equated the meanings of these two words, Krishna later subdivides this renunciation into Sattvika, Rajasa and Tamasa Sannyasa. Throughout the discussion, Krishna carefully avoids the conventional meaning of the word renunciation, which is the most popular, right? And what is that? That is taking to a life of a monk's lifestyle. Why is Krishna avoiding that? Because he knows Arjuna is just waiting for an opportunity to run away to Rishikesh, right? So because for an escapist person, never talk about sannyasa. Because he already wants to escape, he will take this, right, recourse to that end and run away from the family. And Krishna does not want Arjuna to run away because Krishna feels Arjuna is not ready for the traditional sannyasa. Therefore, he talks about three sannyasas, Sattvika, Rajasika and Tamasika sannyasa. And he nearly says that Rajasika and Tamasika sannyasas are both renunciation of duties, running away from family because there are problems. That is Rajasika renunciation, right? Tamasika renunciation. And then he also says, never do that. He calls both of these that. And then he says, take to Sattvika renunciation. Remain in the family, right? What is Sattvika renunciation? Remaining in the families, performing all the duties. And when there is anxiety regarding the future, what will happen to me? Will I lose my job? Will I lose my promotion, right? So when that kind of anxiety comes, renounce that anxiety. Do your duty, surrender to the Lord. Whatever consequence comes, prepare to accept it, right? For that, you wear a mental helmet or a kavacham. What is that? That is the Ishvara Bhakti, Ishwararpana Bhavana, Prasada Bhavana. And with this helmet, you will be able to accept all forms of future. So, Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva Labha Labhau Jaya Jayau Tato Yuddhaya Yujyasva Naivam Papamavapsyasi. In 238, we saw Krishna advising Arjuna, but still he had to come until the 18th chapter. Right? So thus Lord Krishna answers Arjuna's question, equating sannyasa and tyaga. Thereafter, he divides it into 3 types and recommends Sattvika sannyasa, which is another name for Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga is nothing but Sattvika sannyasa here, which is anxiety renunciation, anxiety with respect to future, with respect to the results. This is from verses 1 to 12. Then from 13 to 17, Lord Krishna talks about Jnana Yuga, which is very, very important. He summarizes the entire Upanishads in just 5 verses, the entire Upanishadic teaching. Very profound and difficult for a beginner, but when you study Gita several times, initially our focus is on the Karma Yoga part of the Gita, and when we expose to Jnana Yoga few times, not just once or twice, few times, right? Then what will happen is we will slowly, first the focus will be Karma Yoga Pradhana Gita, then it will become Jnana Yoga Pradhana. So this is from 13 to 17. In this we have to note that Karma Yoga was prescribed before, right? Is for the preparation to enter Jnana Yoga, which is nothing but a consistent and systematic study of the Vedantic scriptures for a length of time under a competent spiritual guide. That is Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga never gives liberation directly, right? And very important here to note, I know many of you are extremely busy. A word of practical advice, what I have gone through, this consistency is very important. If you are able to give only 1 hour per week, it doesn't matter. Please mark that time 1 hour for Gita revision and make sure you write notes or whatever makes you concentrate, right? For that 1 hour without disturbance, switching off the phones, etc. Take a resolve, right? A sankalpa, and do it regularly week after week, because this is not like your maths, physics, chemistry that you can study for an exam and get away with, right? This is something that you have to be at, and with each revision, you get better and better clarity of this teaching, and it is a journey of a lifetime. So that consistent, study is very, very important, because when you look at the vastness of the Shastras, you may get worried and you may become a non-starter. Or after 1 class or 2 classes, or say after 1 or 2 chapters, we may give up. We don't need to feel diffident, and it's very important for us to note that slowly Bhagavan will increase that 1 hour to 2 hours to 3 hours. It will automatically happen. You just put that first foot forward and consistently work on it. That's all is required, right? So, very important aspect here, 13 to 17, is the Jnana Yoga portion, right? And as I said, Karma Yoga never gives liberation directly. Karma Yoga brings a person to Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga alone can give liberation, right? So, Lord Krishna pointed out that we have to know the real meaning of the word I, the real nature of I, which we have mistaken as this body, mind, sense complex. And this fallacious I, the pseudo I, is called ahankara, right? It is the deadliest poison, which is the cause for the entire samsara. So ahankara and moksha can never coexist. Therefore, self-misconception, this pseudo I, will have to be renounced by inquiring into the real I, and through the inquiry for several years, right? The conclusion that we have to arrive at is body is the medium through which I interact with the world. Body is not the I who is behind the medium. Similarly, mind is a medium of transaction. Sense organs are a medium of transaction. I use them and transact in the waking state. During deep sleep state, these mediums are kept aside. The transactions end, but I continue to exist right through the three avasthas. Therefore, transacting with the medium, I exist. Ending the transactions also, I exist. Therefore, I am different from the body, mind, sense complex. And I am the consciousness principle, which is aware of the body, the mind, and the sense organs. They're so intimate to me that I mistake them to be me. And that intimacy is the cause of the mistake. Therefore, we have to differentiate. And having differentiated the real I, we have to know the nature of the real I, which is different from the nature of the body-mind complex. We studied about the nature of the body-mind complex, the Jadatvam, the 5 features. We've talked about it, right? So we'll quickly go over this. If you remember those Sanskrit words, it is very nice, right? So Drishyatvam, Bhautikatvam, Sagunatvam, Savikaratvam, and Agamapayitvam. These are the 5 features of the body-mind complex, whereas my real features are Adrishyatvam, Abhautikatvam, Nirgunatvam, Nirvikaratvam, and Anagamapayitvam, right? So you can remember, if you find this difficult, you can remember OMACT, right? OMACT, objectifiable, material in nature, with attributes constantly changing, transient or subject to transactions, basically arrival and departure, right? So it is not, Atma is not an object of experience, it is ever the subject. It is a non-material principle and it is not one of the materials in the world. It is free from attribute and it is free from changes. It is never subject to arrival and departure, right? So in this context, Krishna emphasizes one important feature, right? You should say 2 important features, that is, I am Akarta and Abhokta also. Akarta, Abhokta, right? So this is in contrast with science. Science says your body is matter and it produces consciousness. Vedanta says you are the consciousness, right? And you are the one who is witnessing all the other Jadatattvam or the material tattva. So very important verse 16 we saw, Tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yaha pashyat krita buddhitvad nasa pashyati durmatihi. We also saw yasya naham krito bhavaha buddhir yasya na lipyate hatvapi sa iman lokan nahanti na nipatyate. Very profound verse, yasya naham krito bhava, right? So in the 18th chapter only, here we saw in the 17th verse, right? He who does not have the notion, I am the doer, right? And whose intellect is not affected, does not kill anyone, right? In spite of actually killing. Here in the context of the war, Mahabharata war, this is quoted. Then from 18 to 40, Krishna takes up 6 topics for classification. Classification into Satvika, Rajasika and Tamasika varieties. They are all useful for a spiritual sadhaka, right? In these 6 verses, we have to choose the Satvika ones and we have to drop the Rajasika and Tamasika varieties. The build up for the Sattvic personality must happen. Very similar to what we saw in the 14th chapter. This transformation can't be a sudden one. If I am a Tamasic variety, I can't go to Sattvic variety directly. So from Tamasic, I have to go to Rajasic. From Rajasic, I have to go to Sattvic. In all of them, right, we will see now in each of these 6 different topics, we will see what is Sattvika, what is Rajasika and what is Tamasika. So it is very important for us to first understand, right, the value of human life and then constructively use by putting forth effort and not using this life and squandering away for a lazy animalistic life, because animals can't work for anything. Their life is governed by instincts. And we saw this very important shloka and I thought it appropriate to remind you here. Durlabam trayame vaitat devanugraha hetukam Manushyatvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshayah. Viveka Chudamani starts like this, the third stanza. These three are hard to come by and come only with God's grace, human birth and desire for liberation and company of the learned noble or a guru, right? So if you actually see, there is a parallel by Auvayar also, right? Aridu aridu மானிடராய் பிறத்தல் அரிது அதனினும் அரிது ஊன் குருடு செவிடு பேடு நீக்கி பிறத்தல் அரிது அதனினும் அரிது ஞானமும் கல்வியும் நயத்தல் அரிது அதனினும் அரிது தானமும் தவமும் தான் செய்தல் அரிது தனமும் தவமும் செய்தால் வானவர் நாடி வழி பிறந்திடுமே. So our first aim, how beautifully, if you see each language, you had such beautiful sayings or shlokas or couplets which brought this out so nicely, right, across languages, right? So you see that Hinduism was a big way of life, and that is why there is no language barrier for that. So our first aim is we have to know the value of human life and constructively use by putting forth effort, right? So live a life which is governed by our Hinduism principles and what is expected to be followed rather than governed by instincts, right? So if I am also going to lead a life of let go, exactly like animals, I just do whatever I feel like doing. I don't have a mood, so I will do whatever I feel like, right? So Pujya Swamiji Dayananda ji says, no, if you're subject to moods, then you are moodaha. So don't be an animal man. Tamasic life of inertia, indolence, laziness, stagnation has to be given up and be active. Then the next stage is, once I have decided activity, Krishna says, may you have materialistic goals, does not matter. Better to have material goals rather than having no goals, right? Right, like Swamiji often quotes as a person who said, I've never failed in my life. Why? Because I've never attempted anything in my life, right? No. Similarly, here, it is better to have materialistic goals, right, of artha and kama than not having goals at all. And gradually let it be converted into dharma. I earn a lot and I give a lot also. So materialistic pursuits will be categorized as rajasic, no goal is tamasic, and materialistic and satvika goal is the spiritual goal, right? So Krishna says, if you follow dharma in fulfilling your worldly desires, gradually the mind will become purer and purer. And if you have bhakti also along with that, right, you will understand the limitations of the worldly goals. What is the limitation of the worldly goal? They're all subject to arrival and departure, and therefore they cannot give us permanent peace, security and happiness, right? And the same thing that gave us joy will give us intense sorrow when it goes away. So understanding the limitations of material goals and then turning towards the spiritual goal called Ishvara or Moksha or Brahman, that is spirituality, right? So in Rajasic life, I use God as a means for worldly things. In Sattvic life, God is the means and God is the end also. Once I choose God as the end, then I become Sattvic. So this is a general rule. So no goal to material goal to spiritual goal is the journey. And the 6 topics that Krishna discusses, we'll just enumerate and quickly see, right? Number 1 is Jnanam, 3 types of knowledge. Karma, 3 types of karma. 3 types of karta, actors, right? How the way they act in the world. So karta, then buddhihi means intellect or intelligence, 3 types of intellect, and dhritihi, 3 types of willpower, right? Willpower for materialistic goals, willpower for spiritual goals, willpower because of which one adamantly refuses to do anything also. That is also willpower, right? So I will not do, stubbornly saying no, right? So that is tamasic willpower, when he refuses to do anything. Willpower by which he says I wouldn't. So dhritihi is willpower. Finally, sukham or happiness. Happiness is also sattvika, rajasika and tamasika type. So our aim is what? Gradually to change the desire to Satvika Ananda, which is spiritual Ananda. So these are the 6 topics from 18 to 40. In chapter 14 and 17 also we saw in Gunatraya Vibhaga and Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga we saw, right? Let's quickly compare, and I think compared to Swamiji, I have the advantage of pulling out the slides immediately and putting them. I'm really thankful for that. So this is the one on chapter 14. The first we got introduced to Satvika, Rajasika and Tamasa, kind of the gunas itself, the Lakshanam, the definition of each guna, the Bandhana Prakara, the bondage, and then the Lingam, the indicatory mark, and then the Phalam, the consequence of the domination of each type of guna, and what is the Gati, the travel after death. We saw all this in great detail, right? Lakshanam, first one is a receptive state of mind that indicates the domination of Sattva guna. A calm and receptive state of mind is the indication of Sattva guna, right? And then an extrovert state is Rajoguna domination, and a Tamoguna Lakshanam is dull and confused state of mind, right? So, and then how does each one bind? A Sattva guna makes the Jnanendriyam to be more active, and therefore there is a greed or craving for more and more knowledge. So a Sattvika mind is attached to the infrastructure which is conducive for more and more knowledge, and this very same attachment becomes a bondage, because when such an atmosphere is not there even at home, right, then you start feeling disturbed, right? Whereas when Rajoguna is dominant, the mind is greedy for more and more action, right? It's not a knowledge centric mind. And Tamoguna is sloppiness, negligence, etc., right? So all these 3 gunas, we saw the Lakshanam, the kind of binding, the Lingam, the indicatory mark, and Phalam, the consequence, right? The Phalam of Sattva guna is Jnana Vritti, right? We saw that Jnanam increases, and so we saw in great detail all of this. And then we also saw the Gati of these people after death. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasaha, right? Jaganya gunavrittastha adho gachanti, etc. Right? Now, the message that was given in the 14th chapter was a person can gradually change the composition of the 3 gunas, so that during one's lifetime we can move slowly towards Sattva guna. Whether we are able to attain moksha or not in this janma, it doesn't matter, but at least we are progressing in this spiritual journey by attempting to move from tamasa, rajasa to Sattva guna. So in subsequently in chapter 17 as well as 18, there are various categories and various areas where the Sattva, Tamo and Sattva, Rajo and Tamo have been described. So it's like kind of a ready reckoner that we can use to check whether we are progressing in that journey or not, right? So that was 14th chapter summary. And in the 17th chapter also we saw Dhanam, right? So the Dhanam is sharing our resources with others according to our category. We saw all of these. In fact, it was very interesting to see Shraddha, Ahara, Yajna and Dhanam. Worship, the kind of gods we worship, right? The kind of food we eat, the kind of Yajna that we do, and the kind of charity we are involved in. Charity was greatly discussed, because very, very important that the Sattvika Dhanam is giving away in charity without expecting anything in return, not even good words, right? Total zero expectation charity, that is Satvika Dhanam, right? So we saw all of these topics in chapter 17. So Sattva, Rajo, Tamo Guna description in 14, followed by 17 and 18, which elaborates all these different areas. Now the 4th topic from 41 to 49, Krishna summarizes Karma Yoga, emphasizing our contribution to the society. So Dayananda Swamiji repeatedly says, you should never be a mere consumer. Ask the question, what do I contribute? Contribute toward the 5-fold infrastructure, right? Family, the social infrastructure, the religious infrastructure, the animal infrastructure, and ultimately The Panchabhutani itself is an infrastructure, right? So how I contribute, what I contribute does not matter. That I contribute is important. So Krishna talks about 4 areas of contribution, and he gave the reason also as to what is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, etc. And they don't represent caste, but they represent profession, the kind of profession we do, service providers, traders, rulers, teachers. You take to any profession you like, gather the skill and contribute. While contributing, don't consider the income as primary, consider the contribution as primary. Let the earning be treated as a byproduct, right? It's very, very important. What I give is important because the Vedic culture emphasizes giving more than taking. Because ultimate moksha is na karmana, na prajaya, na danena, tyage naikena amritatvam. How much I earned is not important. How much I shared, how much I contributed is important. Therefore, the 4 varnas he talked about, and he talked about choosing any profession according to your temperament. Swabhavajam karma, very important word. Depending on my inclination, choose any profession but contribute. Thus, Karma Yoga emphasizes professional or occupational contribution, and it was highlighted from 41 to 49. Again, he talks about Karma Yoga a second time later on after 55. So, but in between, he highlights Jnana Yoga from 50 to 55. So, 50 to 55, Jnana Yoga, he talks about. In Jnana Yoga, we talk about 3 exercises. Shravanam, listening to and receiving the knowledge. Then Mananam, reflecting over the knowledge, and whatever doubt is there, removing the doubt and converting the knowledge into Dridajnana, conviction. Either my own reflection or referring to a previous portion, later portion, etc. Because you've got several chapters of the Gita, and I'm not fully convinced as I'm listening. So I go cross-reference, verify, etc. Right? So whether Guru is there or not, you can ask the Guru, you can go back and revise, etc. So doubtful knowledge is as good as ignorance, right? So the Mananam helps in converting that into proper doubtless knowledge. And then the final part is Nididhyasanam, which is diluting the habitual ahankara. I have repeated this story about this the Barbers Association, where they have an anniversary function. So many times I've repeated that example. Today, one of the students attending this class actually sent me this example, and I really liked it. And it is about the lion and the jackal, right? So the jackal who became the king of the forest, right? So this brings out a very subtle aspect of Nididhyasanam. So there's this jackal which went into the village, and it was, it was a village where there were a lot of, these laundry people dyeing the clothes, etc. So this jackal fell into the tub of blue dye. So he then fled to the forest, but he had by then become blue. So all the animals said, "What is this? Who is this animal?" So even the lion was surprised. "We've never seen you before, sir. Who are you?" So the jackal replied, "I've been sent by God." Right? So they began to worship him as God. Right? So what is the mindset of the jackal? The jackal is still a jackal in the mind. He became blue because he fell into the blue tub. Right? So one night, what happened? The other jackals were all crying, and this blue jackal was, with the lions and the tigers, officiating a meeting of the animals in the forest. And he heard the other jackals crying, "Wow," right? Howling in the night. So he exposed himself immediately by also starting to howl, because a jackal's natural instinct is to howl, right? So he exposed himself before all the other animals. And of course, the story goes that, he was driven out or he was killed, etc. The important point to be noted here is, so the instinctive feeling that we have is, I am a samsari. I am this poor body mind complex which is constantly battered by the world, right? That is the instinct that we have. So through Nididhyasanam, we not only understand, we have the doubtless knowledge that I am the Atma, right? Nirguna Atma, Aham Satyam, Aham Nityam, all that we know. But to make sure that it is there at all the time, what we refer as Sahaja Samadhi, right? We need to spend time in Nididhyasanam, right? So Nididhyasanam is assimilating the teaching, right? So the pseudo I we've been using all the time, right? Not only we have been using the rest of the life also for worldly transactions, we have to use them. So in some, suppose you're going to, get your Aadhaar card and they ask you what's your name, you can't say I'm Atma, Karta, Bhokta, Nirguna, etc. Right? You have to write whatever you are. So it is going to constantly remind you also. But we should spend time daily reminding ourselves that the Ahankara is a costume for conducting the worldly drama. A drama initiated by Bhagavan. So we have a role to play as a mother, husband, wife, guru, shishya. All these are roles. So Ahankara is a costume. Regularly, I should remind myself. Otherwise, Ahankara becomes a Mahabhara. Right? So we always have this constant, worry towards, will I discharge my duties towards my children? Will my children discharge their duties towards me? All of this, the mind is always stressed. So Ahankara can create only stress, and the only way of de-stressing is spending some time invoking the higher I as revealed in the scriptures, which is called Nididhyasanam or Vedantic meditation. Very useful to even spend 10 minutes twice a day or once a day, depending on what time we have, to first relax and then, dwell in the meaning of either Nirvana Shatkam or Swamiji has given 10 important meditation verses. Any of these, to dwell in them helps in dwelling on the higher nature, and it stays for some time, right? So as Swamiji puts it, this portion is highlighted in 50 to 55, and he says if an actor gets confused with the role, what will happen? Imagine an actor, he's in a drama and he gets so carried away while acting that he is in deep anguish over the loss of his wife and he is uncontrollably lamenting on the stage. Now we have no choice, right? He's in a trance. He has to be brought to the green room, right? And somebody needs to wake him up and say, all these are acting only. Don't cry. Your real wife is actually sitting in the front row. Don't worry, right? And then you shake him and wake him. So therefore, Nididhyasanam is, just to give you an analogy, I said all this. So Nididhyasanam is the portion that is highlighted from verse 50 to 55. It means Vedantic meditation after knowledge and conviction. After knowledge and conviction is very important. Before that, Vedantic meditation will not work. We have to spend a lot of time in Shravanam, Mananam, and then start Vedantic meditation, right? (56 to 62) is the second part of Karma Yoga. In the previous part in Karma Yoga, he emphasized the contributory part. The karma part was emphasized. In this portion, the yoga part is emphasized. So 41 to 49, karma part of Karma Yoga. 56 to 62, the yoga part of Karma Yoga. Right? The attitude, that is the most important part. And while doing, what is the bhavana that I have, and after doing, what bhavana I have. Bhavana means attitude, and later when the result comes also, what is the bhavana I have. Basically, there are three stages: during the action, right? During the result and the intermediary period. What is the attitude, right, that I have in the mind, right? Am I having Ishvara Prasada Bhavana? I sent application for my son to 5 universities. The result hasn't come. So that intermediary time, all the time stressed, right? So that level of stress indicates how much of this has worked on us, right? So it at least has to reduce, because we cannot avoid completely, right? At least reducing the stress. Dedicate the karma to Bhagavan. So remembering Bhagavan gives the result of every action. You must remember that Bhagavan is actually implementing the law of karma and giving us the result, right? And one portion is our prayatnaha. Remembering this fact and dedicating every karma, whether it is religious or it's the normal mundane karma, right? Dedicating it to Bhagavan mentally. And at the time of dedication, I should tell myself, I would like success, no doubt. Everybody wants success, but it is okay. Whatever be the legitimate result, I am willing to accept, right? Because I know you are a just and fair God and you will not violate the law of karma. I only seek inner strength to await the result without stress and receive the result as it comes. So the bhavana of surrender and the bhavana of acceptance, accept the choiceless is the accepting the choiceless or accept the choiceless. Choiceless is the slogan of Gita. Never resist the choiceless. Greater the resistance, greater the stress, right? So even in science, we know as resistance increases, heat increases, right? So never resist. Oh Lord, I accept your will. This is called yoga. In karma yoga, the yoga refers to the bhavana, right? Prasada, Ishvara, Prasada and Arpana Bhavana, both of them put together. So Krishna highlighted in this beautiful shloka, Matchitaha sarva durgani matprasadat tarishyasi atachetvam ahankarat nashroshyasi vinangshyasi. So Arjuna, surrender to me and do what you have to do. Even if obstacles come, even if failure comes, ultimately you will win. There is no question of failure. Maybe a few times, but you will ultimately, you will be able to get it. So this is Karma Yoga from yoga angle, verses 56 to up to 58, right? So now we move on from 63. Yeah, this was up to 62. So 63 to 66, Lord Krishna gives the final summary and says that I am only playing the role of an acharya for you. I don't want to make a decision for you. I don't want to be a decision maker. As a human being, you have got a free will. You should take charge of your future. You should be ready to take the decision and you should be ready to face the consequences of your decision. Don't run away from decision making. Life is a continuous series of decision making. Right from getting up in the morning, from the time the alarm rings, whether I should get up or not, is a big fight, internal fight. Can I sleep for 5 minutes more, etc. Therefore, right from getting up, we have to decide. And if you refuse to decide, Bhagavan will give animal birth next Janma. Because animal birth does not require you to take any decision. It can just go by instinct, right? Therefore, we have to use our free will. We should be courageous, and therefore, Arjuna, decision must be yours. But I will summarize once again for you Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Thus, Lord Krishna summarized in verses 65 and 66 the final summary of the Gita, considered to be one of the most important verses. Karma Yoga summary is in Manmana Bhava Madbhaktaha Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Surrender and travel. Refine your desires gradually from Artha desire to Kama desire to Dharma desire to finally Moksha desire. Refining the desires and fulfilling them is the journey. Surrender to the Lord and travel. The finest refined desire is desire for God. Manmana Bhava, think of me. At the time of death, your prayer should be that I should attain the Lord. This is Karma Yoga, Saraha, surrender and do. Then the very famous Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja, that's the Jnana Yoga Saraha. In the 66th verse, considered to be the Charama Shloka of the Gita. Charama meaning the final teaching shloka. It is called Sharanagati Shloka. And we saw Shankaracharya interprets it as the ultimate Jnanam, right? Ahankara is merged into Atma, which is Jnana Yoga or Jnanam. So Sharanagati of the 66th verse is nothing but Aham Brahmasmi Jnanam. So with this, the final summary is also over from 63 to 66. Then from 67 to 73, Lord Krishna makes the concluding remarks, emphasizing on the qualifications required for Gita study, right? tapaha, bhaktihi, shushrusha and anasuya. We saw it yesterday. Tapaha means a moderate life, giving importance to both material pursuit as well as spiritual pursuit, balancing them, moderation, everything, a lifelong, not just chasing only money, right? The second one is bhakti, meaning devotion to the Lord, both as means as well as the ultimate end. Then the third one is shushrusha, desire for the study of the Gita because of the conviction that Bhagavad Gita can bring about a positive transformation in life, right? It is not a waste of time, right? You should have that Shraddha also. So even in the 20th or 21st century, it is valid. It is not meant for unemployed sannyasis. No, never think that way, right? There is, people think there is no work for them, so they study Gita. Many people actually think that way. They don't think that it is important for your own self-growth and for your own balance in life that you need Gita. It is not a pastime, right? It is not a hobby, right? So this is called Shushrusha. Shushrusha is not the conventional meaning, but Shrotum Icha, desire for Shravanam, right? And then the fourth one is Anusuya. Anusuya, don't pass judgment on the Gita. Never have a critical attitude. It is coming from the Lord, compiled by Vyasacharya. It has blessed generations, and therefore I should never have a critical attitude. If I am not able to accept certain points, I question my understanding rather than questioning the Gita. This humility is called Anasuya, the non-critical mind. And these four are important. And later he says that if these four are there, at least minimum Shraddha, Bhakti, if it is there, you can study Gita. Finally, he comes down to these two. Thereafter, Lord Krishna praises the Gita teacher as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Then he praises all the students of the Gita also, fully qualified, partially qualified, minimally qualified, all those people who care for Gita, dropping other responsibilities, spending 1 hour, 2 hours of time per week, sitting in the class and listening. Krishna says the students are also great. If they are unqualified also, they will get Swarga. Qualified, they will get Moksha. So minimum all students will get Swarga, and we will see in Gita Mahatmyam, the Falashruti, what is the benefit of even keeping a book, Gita book in the house, right? Thus, Krishna glorified all of them and asked Arjuna, did you listen properly? Then Arjuna answered, I did listen and I did get your message and I don't have any confusion. Moha nashtaha. Regarding the Mahabharata battle, I have no confusion. I know it's my duty to fight and it is Dharma Yuddha and I will follow that. Then after Arjuna's answer, 74 to 78, Sanjaya makes the concluding remarks, pointing out that I was also fortunate to listen to Gita along with Arjuna, even though I was far away from the battlefield. And he expresses his gratitude to Vyasacharya, by whose grace alone he could get the distant vision, a television equivalent, right? So Sanjaya says, I also benefited from the Gita, and I'm thrilled to have had this Gita. And among all the topics, and the greatest one I enjoyed is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, the attitude by which I see everything as divine. That is the greatest, because seeing everything as God reduces my raga and dvesha. I'm in the company of the Lord all the time. Therefore, Vishwarupa Darshanam is the most thrilling one. And then Sanjaya concluded, right? Wherever Arjuna and Krishna are remembered together as Gita Charya and the Gita Vidyarthi, their Gita will also be remembered, and whoever remembers the teaching of the Gita and attempts to follow, they will have an all-round prosperity, material well-being as well as spiritual well-being. So with this glorification of the Gita, Sanjaya concludes, right? And with this concluding remarks of Sanjaya, the 18th chapter of Gita is over, and the summary of the 18th chapter is also over. So in summary, these are the topics. These are the important key shlokas of chapter 18. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So just a reminder, on 13 June Sunday at 8:30 p.m. we will have a test. It's a nice test. Any of you can just attempt it. And on 5th June, we will have overview of the Gita. And on 6th June, we will have Gita Mahatmya. Okay. So, yeah, are there any questions? Yeah, there's somebody who's. Please go ahead, Venkateshwaran
Yes, yes.
Gopal Mahodaya.
Namaskaram, madam.
Namaste.
This registration for the exam, those details you will send, isn't it? Registration details.
Maybe
We usually Omar conducts that like
correct,
that.
correct,
Yes.
correct. Maybe we won't have a registration. We'll just send. We'll just have a webinar, and then we will. I'll just give you the link at that time. That's all. Okay, I will definitely answer next week.
On
if
that
there
day
is
itself, you will give the link, is it?
It's a Google form, so you just have to write an objective kind
Yes.
of thing. That's all, and you will get your marks immediately. You just know where you are. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there's somebody else who raised their hand. Okay, but I don't see that now. Any other questions? Yeah. Mohana Mahodaya.
Namaskara, Bhagini. Namaskara, Bhagini. Yesterday, I was discussing this with one person. I can't come to terms about Buddha. He left his wife and child, who was, the child was born. He left all his responsibility and walked off into sannyasa. This is what we were discussing. I can't come to terms with that. He has failed. But like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa always says in his thing, if anybody comes to for sannyasa, he will say, who's going to take care of your children? Will the community take? Go back. Do your responsibility first. So that is my thing, that how he can become enlightened. How can he be? So my friend was explaining, she says, anybody who is born as a human being will have a flaw because he was a human incarnation. So this is my always, till today, I have this problem with Buddha's walking out on responsibilities.
Okay. Venkat Narayana Mahodaya.
Namaste, ma'am. I'm sorry I could not get classes, but I got to know very, very late. I started joining since then. But my question is, are these sessions recorded? And also, do we have any similar sessions going forward, either on the repeat or maybe Upanishads or any such?
Yes.
And thank you so much for conducting these sessions, ma'am.
Yeah. Gita is available on the Vyoma website, and they're also available on YouTube. So all the today I am in the 143rd session. So all of them are available. If you actually register on Vyoma, the biggest advantage is you will be able to download whatever, some chantings and some material and all are available. So you can download them and watch all the classes. Everything is available. So you can go through methodically. Not only that, you can also go through Introduction to Vedanta in parallel, so that you're able to understand and get maximum benefit out of Gita. In fact, in the coming class, when I do overview of Gita, I will try and connect back as much as possible to Vedanta also.
Thank you, ma'am.
And there is going to be a Upanishad class. Only thing is, I would recommend that people who have completed Gita or have done reasonably, some progressed reasonably, should attend Gita, Upanishad classes. But if you're interested, you can drop a mail to vedantasatsanga@gmail.com. I'll let you know the details.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, there's KVS Iyer. You're self-muted. Okay, there's somebody else. Ravichandran, sir.
महोदयानाम् अध्यापनं मैत्री त्यागश्च बहु श्लाघनीयम् आसीत्। उपनिषद प्रकरणग्रन्थः च भवत्या एव स्वीकरोति वा?
Okay, let me respond in English so that everybody understands. Upanishads, I'm going to be doing in a restricted way. The reason being that there is a parampara that believes that we don't share Upanishads in public. So therefore, I'm going to see if I can conduct the session and actually put it up on a private Vimeo so that it is restricted to a smaller group. That is the reason why I have given, if you're interested, send a mail to this. Prakarana Grantha, we might start, say, Tattva Bodha or any of them. We are still discussing. That will be done anyway in public, and we'll let you know through Vyoma.
I will send a mail to this Vedanta Satsanga so that keeping also in perspective.
Please.
Thank
sure.
you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? I think there is a question. I'm just going to see that also. Why should we consider wife and son as responsibility? If they are considered as assets and possessions, Buddha has renounced the same. Okay, another viewpoint from somebody here. Okay, that's interesting. But in general, when we say, as Swamiji puts it, Pancha Anatma, one is related to Ahankara, which is body, mind, sense complex. And then the Mamakara part is all of the family, possessions and professions. So in that context, family plays a very, very important role. Okay. Any of you have any questions since we've kind of completed this course? Please do write to me so that if it requires some, I need to put together some slides, I can do that, or I can take questions even after the overview of Gita, which we will be doing in the coming class. And the last class would be Mahatmyam. I would definitely request all of you to attend without waiting for the recording, because it is very, very important, and tradition believes and it strongly says that we must listen to Gita Mahatmyam in order to get the punyam associated with Gita. So I don't want to go against that, and that is why I'm also going to be doing Gita Mahatmyam, and I will quickly run through the meaning of the Gita Mahatmyam very fast in about half an hour or something. And of course, Professor Mahadevan may join us that day. So we will see how it goes. Okay, if there's no other question, then we can end the session today. I don't see any other hands raised. Okay, so we will meet on 5th, that is next Saturday at 6:25 p.m. on 5th of June. Hari Om.